What if her silence isn't confusion, but punishment? What if, the moment she left, it wasn't clarity she was searching for, but weakness she was testing? Most men don't catch it. They believe the story she never tells, that she needs time, space, healing. But what if all of that was a script? What if the silence she wrapped herself in wasn't soft or spiritual, but strategic? A silence designed not to find peace, but to provoke you, to see if you'd collapse, to see if you'd hand over your dignity in hopes of getting back something that was never lost. It was withdrawn. That's the part no one talks about, because this isn't just heartbreak. This is psychological warfare. And right now, you're the battlefield, not because she hates you, but because she wants to control how you see yourself without her. Every unanswered message, every ghosted moment, every calculated cold shoulder isn't random. It's her move, and she's watching for yours. Will you chase? Will you post something desperate hoping she'll notice? Will you try to make her understand when she already does? Most men fold. They think reaching out makes them brave. They believe explaining makes them mature. But it doesn't. It makes them predictable. And the predictable man is the man she forgets. But you're not here to be forgotten. You're not here to be someone's emotional experiment. You're here to reclaim control. And it starts by stepping out of the game entirely, not to win her back, but to win yourself back. Because the moment you stop performing is the moment she starts wondering. The second you stop needing her approval is the moment she starts losing her power over you. If you're ready for that shift, if you're done being confused by her silence and want to step fully into the truth, then like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and turn on notifications. Let's begin. 1. She didn't leave to heal, she left to hurt. Some breakups don't come from emotional confusion. They come from calculated silence. She didn't walk away because she was lost. She walked away because she wanted you to be. Her leaving wasn't a search for peace. It was a trigger disguised as distance. What you thought was space for healing was, in truth, space designed to unravel you. That's what many men fail to see at first. They imagine she's meditating, journaling, finding herself. But in reality, she's watching, quietly, indirectly, through mutual friends, through social media, through your online presence. She's observing not your healing, but your reaction. What she wanted was simple: for you to fold, for you to chase, for you to question your own worth without her presence there to validate it. And the moment you gave in, when you sent that message, posted that quote, called her late at night trying to explain or reconnect, she didn't feel closer to you. She felt stronger than you, because now she had proof that you were emotionally dependent, that you needed her far more than she needed you, and that imbalance, that was the point. It's not always about love lost. Sometimes it's about power gained. Your effort didn't seem courageous. It seemed reactive. Your vulnerability didn't look like emotional maturity. It looked like emotional surrender. And in that moment, the image of you in her mind wasn't the man she once respected. It was the man she now controls. But now the script flips, because now you stop playing your part in her performance. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop trying to turn pain into permission. She left expecting you to fall apart, so don't. Let her silence be met by something she didn't anticipate: your stillness. Let her absence echo into a void that no longer belongs to her. Let her wonder, not just where you went, but how she lost access to someone who once gave so much. This isn't about vengeance. It's about evolution, about becoming the kind of man who no longer builds his identity around being chosen, a man who doesn't crumble when he loses someone, but sharpens. A man whose silence doesn't beg for closure, but declares self-respect. And when she finally realizes that her departure didn't destroy you, that it, in fact, refined you, that's when the regret sets in. Quietly, slowly, but deeply. 2. Every text you send is pushing her further away. When a woman truly wants you, she doesn't need to see you chasing her shadow. She doesn't need constant reminders that you're still there, still waiting, still emotionally tethered. But when a woman leaves to test your reaction, to confirm her control, your response becomes her scoreboard. And in that twisted game, every message you send isn't a plea for love. It's a signal of submission, not to your heart, but to her ego. You think you're helping. You think that one last message, that one more call, that final "just want to clarify" might change the story. It won't. Because in her eyes, the more you reach out, the less grounded you appear. What you believe is vulnerability, she experiences as desperation. The truth is harsh, but it's essential. She doesn't have to block you when you're willingly handing her your emotional access. And she knows it. She knows every time you type, delete, and retype that text. She knows when you post something vague, hoping she'll see it. She knows when you're still orbiting her world, even if she's gone from yours. But here's the shift. That awareness doesn't draw her back. It pushes her further away. Because it confirms she still holds the reins. She still defines the rhythm of your emotions. If you want to shift the power, you must first reclaim your peace. And peace doesn't look like explanation. It looks like distance. It looks like not responding, not reacting. It looks like letting her curiosity grow in the absence of your validation. Because when she can no longer provoke a reaction, that's when her mind starts spinning. Not when you confess more, but when you say nothing at all. The man who chooses calm over chaos, dignity over desperation, he doesn't lose her. He changes how she sees him. She expected noise. You gave her quiet. She expected tears. You gave her silence. And in that stillness, her assumptions begin to crack. Was she wrong about you? Did she misread your strength? Did she underestimate your ability to let go? Let her sit with those questions. Let your non-response become her mirror. Because true power isn't loud. It's in what you withhold. And every message you don't send is a reminder, not to her but to yourself, that your worth doesn't depend on being heard. It depends on knowing when not to speak. 3. She wasn't the ending, she was the mirror. Some people don't walk into your life to stay. They walk in to reflect. She didn't come to complete your story. She came to reveal where you had been writing yourself out of it. Her leaving wasn't just an exit. It was an exposure, not of her truth, but of yours, of the parts of you that clung instead of led, that chased instead of chose, that confused need with love and silence with rejection. You told yourself you were loving her with everything you had, but in truth, you were handing over pieces of your identity just to feel worthy. When she pulled away, she didn't just abandon the relationship. She held up a mirror. And in that mirror, you saw a man who tried too hard to hold on to someone who never intended to stay. You saw the version of yourself who believed effort alone could convince someone to love you back. That version needs to go, not because he was weak, but because he was unfinished. The ending wasn't her walking away. The ending was when you finally stopped running from that mirror, when you looked into it and admitted the truth. You had been building your value around her validation, around her moods, around whether or not she saw your worth. And that realization, as sharp as it is also freeing, because now you get to reclaim what was always yours, your energy, your focus, your standards. She didn't break you, she revealed you. And what a gift that is, because now you get to rebuild from clarity, not confusion, from identity, not insecurity, from strength, not survival. She wasn't your downfall. She was your mirror. And what she reflected wasn't your destruction. It was your opportunity to evolve. Don't resent the mirror. Thank it. Because without that reflection, you might still be giving too much of yourself to people who give too little. Without it, you might still believe that love means sacrificing your self-respect. But now you know, love isn't about chasing, it's about choosing, not her, you, your peace, your purpose. And when you begin to rebuild from that place, something powerful happens. The version of you who needed her fades. And the man who finally sees himself clearly, calmly, fully emerges. 4. Pain is the professor. Stop skipping class. Pain has a way of introducing itself like a storm, loud, invasive, overwhelming. But underneath that chaos, it's a teacher in disguise, a relentless, unyielding professor who doesn't let you coast through the semester. And most men, they try to drop the class. They run, numb it with distractions, bury it under busyness, drink it away, laugh it off, pretend they're unaffected. But pain has patience. It waits. It shows up when you least expect it, in quiet rooms, in the pause before sleep, in the breath between memories. It doesn't go away. It simply delays the lesson. You don't heal by hiding. You heal by sitting in it, feeling every ache, holding every question, letting it burn through the illusion until all that's left is the truth. The parts of yourself that were still unfinished, unguarded, unprepared. The parts that depended on someone else to feel seen. Pain is brutal, but it's honest. It strips away the fantasy. It rips down the stories you told yourself just to sleep at night. It doesn't coddle you, it confronts you. But that's where the real work begins. And you're not most men anymore. You don't use pain as a reason to crumble. You use it as a reason to discipline your mind, to draw new boundaries, to raise your standards, to stop giving people more than they've earned. Pain, when faced, stops being the enemy. It becomes the fuel. It becomes the frame that sharpens your focus, the silence that strengthens your resolve, the fire that purifies what no longer belongs to you. Don't run from it. Study it. Learn from it. Let it teach you where you were too soft, too giving, too blind. Let it show you what happens when you abandon yourself for love that isn't mutual. And when you've absorbed the lesson, when you've passed the test, you'll look in the mirror and see not a man who's been hurt, but a man who's been refined. A man who didn't just survive pain, he graduated from it with clarity, with dignity, with power. 5. You flipped the board. Now she's playing alone. She didn't expect you to stay silent. She expected noise, tears, texts, long explanations, or one last emotional pitch for closure. What she prepared for was chaos. What she didn't see coming was composure. She set the scene for a reaction, but instead you gave her distance, boundaries, calm, and in doing that, you didn't just shift the energy, you reversed it. You stopped playing the role of the emotionally available man on standby. You stopped fighting for a seat at a table she'd already walked away from. You didn't just leave the game, you flipped the board. There comes a moment when a man realizes that silence is louder than any words he could send, that peace, real peace, doesn't beg to be understood, it simply is. That's what you chose, and it's what's going to haunt her, because now she's left reacting to your stillness. She's left checking her phone, wondering why your name hasn't come up. She's left staring at a void she once assumed would always be filled by your energy. You're no longer there to absorb her moods, validate her choices, or soften the sting of her own decisions. And that absence, one she engineered but didn't expect to feel, starts to echo back on her. This isn't about punishing her, it's about protecting yourself. You no longer respond to emotional bait because you no longer need her validation to feel solid. You've reclaimed authorship over your own narrative. You don't prove your strength with confrontation. You prove it by choosing stillness when everything inside you once screamed for closure. There is no chess match anymore, no tension, no push and pull. You don't compete on a board that's already scorched. You left it behind. And now, the silence you carry isn't emptiness, it's presence. She's playing a game with no opponent, and the longer you remain unmoved, the more she feels it. Not in anger, not in arguments, but in that slow, creeping realization that the one man she thought would always reach finally walked. 6. Your attention is currency and your bleeding value. Every time you think about her, check her page, ask mutual friends, or even sit in silent memory, you're paying her. And not in compliments or kindness, but in the most valuable currency a man has: attention, focus, energy, dignity. You may not realize it in the moment, but every ounce of attention you give is an emotional transaction. You think you're just curious, but what you're really doing is bleeding out value for someone who's no longer present in your life. What you focus on grows. That's not just a cliché, it's psychology. Your mind expands toward the thing you feed it most. So if your thoughts constantly orbit around her, what she's doing, who she might be seeing, what she might be thinking, you're giving her power without even speaking to her. She doesn't have to reach out. She doesn't have to apologize. She doesn't even have to be right, because in your mind, she's still the center. And that means you're not. Reclaiming your attention is a radical act of self-respect. It's not about pretending she never mattered. It's about accepting that she no longer does, that what once had your attention must now lose access to it. Not out of spite, but because you've finally realized the cost. You've finally counted the emotional toll of every scroll, every what if, every internal debate, and you're done paying interest on someone else's silence. Pull it back, all of it. Like a soldier retrieving his last remaining ammunition from the battlefield. Refocus on yourself, on your peace, on your craft. Not to prove anything to her, but to stop pouring into someone who's no longer pouring back. You don't owe her another thought. Not because you're bitter, but because you've decided that your energy will now build, not bleed. That's the shift. That's the moment everything starts changing. Not when she disappears, but when you finally do. 7. You don't need to be seen. You'll be undeniable. Healing isn't a performance. Growth doesn't require an audience. You don't need to post every step of your recovery or prove to anyone, especially her, that you're better now. Because real evolution doesn't scream. It doesn't flash or announce itself. It happens quietly, in the background, in the hours no one sees. It's in the way you hold your posture when no one's watching, in the way you stop explaining your value and simply live it. Power isn't something you throw into the world to be noticed. It's something you become. And once you do, it becomes impossible to ignore. You don't need to prove to her that you've moved on. Let her feel it in the void your presence used to fill. Let her wonder what happened to the man who used to orbit her world. Let her scroll through silence, searching for signs that no longer exist. You're not bitter. You're not broken. You've just stopped offering your story to someone who no longer belongs in it. That's when the mystery begins. That's when her mind starts replaying everything she once overlooked. Because silence, when rooted in self-respect, is louder than any declaration. It invites curiosity. It forces reflection. And most of all, it draws a boundary she can't cross. You don't need to glow up to get revenge. You don't need the perfect body or the flashy update or the staged photo. What you need is discipline, purpose, a mission that pulls you forward so powerfully that looking back feels like a detour you can't afford to take. The real glow-up is internal, measured not in likes or reactions, but in clarity, in how little you need to prove anymore, in how solid you feel in your own skin. She'll hear about you, she'll notice what's missing, and when she does, it won't be because you tried to show her. It'll be because she finally realized, too late, that the man she once had access to now moves in silence, built from peace, not spite. And that kind of presence, the kind that no longer tries to be seen, is exactly what makes you undeniable. 8. She wasn't the prize, she was the test. You spent so long trying to win her, didn't you? You shaped your words to keep her close, bent your boundaries to keep her happy. You told yourself that if you were just a little more patient, a little more giving, a little less complicated, she'd stay. But here's the truth that only hindsight offers. She was never the prize. She was the test. A test of how far you'd go to earn love that didn't require earning. A test of whether you'd trade in your standards to maintain her attention. She wasn't sent to fulfill your heart. She was sent to expose it, to reveal the parts of you still starving for approval. And when she left, it wasn't punishment, it was clarity. It was the moment the mask dropped and you saw that this wasn't love, it was negotiation, one-sided, draining, unbalanced. But now you've hit the edge of your patience, the limit of your tolerance for being half seen, half heard, half loved. And from that edge you don't fall, you rebuild, stronger, quieter, not because you're closing off, but because you finally learned to stop offering all of you to someone who only wanted parts. She thought she was the reward, but what she didn't realize was that her leaving would awaken the man who no longer begs to be chosen. The man who realizes his value isn't in how well he can please, but in how deeply he can remain aligned with who he really is. That man doesn't chase. He doesn't perform. He doesn't shrink. You didn't lose the prize. You passed the test. And passing doesn't mean you win her back. It means you win yourself back, fully, without apology, without needing her to see it. Because the moment you stop needing to be enough for someone else is the moment you finally become more than enough for yourself. That's the reward, and it's yours now. 9. The man who begged is gone. You buried him. There was a version of you who pleaded, who stayed up late rewriting messages she never answered, who over-explained, over-apologized, and tried to make sense of her silence with logic and love. You called it devotion, but deep down, you knew. It was fear. Fear of losing her. Fear that if you didn't fight for it, no one ever would. You weren't fighting for her affection. You were fighting for your identity, because somewhere along the line, you let her approval define your worth. But that version of you, the one who reached for someone who kept pulling away, he doesn't exist anymore. You buried him the day you chose dignity over desperation, the day you stopped asking to be seen by someone who had already closed their eyes. And in his place stands a different man, a quieter one, a steadier one, a man who doesn't need to be chosen to feel like he matters. Because now you choose yourself. You don't rise now to get her back. You rise because you finally saw yourself clearly, without her influence, without her approval, without the noise. You saw the strength that doesn't chase, the value that doesn't explain, and the peace that comes when you no longer make your healing contingent on someone else's return. And in that stillness, something deeper was born: self-respect. Let the old you go. Mourn him, maybe, but do not revive him. He was necessary for the lesson, but not meant for the future, because the man who now stands in his place is forged, not from love lost, but from truth found. You no longer perform. You no longer convince. You no longer abandon yourself just to be held by someone incapable of keeping you. She may remember the man who begged, but she will meet the man who walked and didn't look back. 10. She'll stay silent too, Because you didn't flinch. When regret comes, it doesn't announce itself. It won't arrive in a late-night call. It won't sound like an apology or a message that says, "I miss you." It comes quietly, through stillness, through moments she didn't expect to feel empty. It creeps in while she scrolls through old messages, while she watches you vanish from the spaces she was used to seeing you in. That's how it begins. She thought you'd flinch, thought you'd eventually crack under the silence and chase her down, beg for closure, try to explain. But you didn't. And that silence, that unwavering refusal to play the emotional tug-of-war, is what breaks the pattern. It's what rewires the memory of you. Because now the silence she created has turned against her. Now it's not about what you said. It's about everything you didn't say. But here's the most important part. When regret does arrive, you won't be waiting. You won't be checking your phone. You won't feel that need to be acknowledged, because your life will have moved forward, not as a show of strength, but as a simple act of direction. You started leading yourself again. You became a man no longer powered by external reactions, but by internal truth. She won't say anything. Pride rarely allows it. Ego won't make room for honesty. She'll stay silent, not because she doesn't feel something, but because now she's the one uncertain. And you'll say even less. Because real strength doesn't explain itself. It doesn't revisit the door it closed. It doesn't broadcast its growth. It just lives it. Let her wonder. Let her feel the weight of what she walked away from, not because you made her feel it, but because you stopped needing to. That's what real power looks like. And that's the version of you she never saw coming. The one who didn't react, the one who didn't flinch, the one who simply moved on, silently, steadily, unshaken. If you're going through this, I need you to hear something clearly. Not everything she did was about love. Some women don't leave because they're lost. They leave because they want you to be. That's a hard truth, I know. But the moment you stop trying to romanticize her silence as spiritual growth and start seeing it for what it is, a power play, that's the moment everything starts to shift. This journey I just laid out for you isn't about hate. It's about clarity. It's about recognizing when you're being used as an emotional mirror, a reaction point, a source of control. Because when you react, when you send that late-night message, when you try to explain your side, when you post hoping she'll see it, you're not proving you care. You're proving she still holds your frame. And she knows it. But there's another way. A way that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't try to rewrite a story that was already closed. You hold the pen now. And that starts when you stop handing her power through your attention and start reclaiming it through your silence. The men who evolve after a breakup aren't the ones who reach out. They're the ones who retreat inward, not to collapse, but to rebuild. They realize that the breakup didn't break them. It revealed them. The wounds, the neediness, the emotional overextension. That was never love. That was a man disconnected from his center. So here's the truth. You don't need to get her back. You don't even need closure. You need stillness. Because stillness isn't surrender. It's strength. And the moment you stop performing for the one who left is the moment you start leading yourself again. What do you take from all this? That pain is not the enemy, it's the mentor. That silence is not emptiness, it's authority. And that the woman who left you confused just showed you the parts of yourself that need to be redefined. Let her watch you disappear into peace, not to punish her, but to protect you. Because this time the man she was sure would fall apart didn't. And that's what makes her silence louder than any apology ever could. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, if it stirred a truth you know to be real, like this video did, then subscribe to Stoic Station. Turn on your notifications so you never miss a moment of clarity. And remember this: your silence is strength. Your stillness is power. Your path is yours alone.